Three Demons, Book 2, Chapter 36, Interruptions. Seeing Kitsune's body fall down to the ground, a trail of blood follows her. Joseph turned to Setzer, his eyes radiating a frightening bloodlust as Setzer looked back with a grin full of malice. Joseph lunged towards Setzer sending one of his tentacles in kind. Joseph began to wrestle down the tentacle, grabbing and twisting it in ways it wasn't meant to be twisted. Rhea, having just regained her composure from almost having the life squeezed out of her, began to conjure up a ball of dark flames, firing it at the distracted Setzer. However, Yomai was there to make the save, using his wind to dissipate the flame immediately. Ava rushed towards Yomai, using her arcana against his magic. Fire, water, ice, lightning, wind, it all clashed against each other, creating a gleaming display of power between the two, as if they were evenly matched. Kazuto aimed his finger at Setzer in a gun-like motion. Suddenly his fingertips fired out of his fingers towards Setzer, catching him off guard and piercing his eye, leaving him writhing in pain. "You little shit, I'm gonna enjoy killing you!" Setzer screamed out at Kazuto before he could act. Joseph jumped onto his back, wrapping his arms around his throat and putting him into a tight chokehold. Setzer looked back in shock as Joseph was covered in a slimy green blood-like substance. He had torn the tentacle in half during his tussle with it. Setzer thrashed around using his other tentacles to grab Joseph, however this caused Joseph's grip around him to tighten even more. Meanwhile, Asuka had dashed to Kitsune's side. She recognized the urgency of her wounds, especially since she got smacked by a fragment of Excalibur. The pain must have been too much to bear for her small body. She carefully began healing Kitsune, while Zyla, her eyes having a slight concern for Kitsune, retrieved her warhammer so she could return to battle. As Yomai was distracted with Alba, Ivy and Cleo jumped at the opportunity to launch a counterattack against him, combining their ice and fire spells together. They create a frozen hellstrom of a whirlwind that engulfs Yomai, allowing Zyla to jump in and crash her warhammer down at Yomai with a thunderous force behind her strike, the ground spiking upward, stabbing Yomai as blood is mixed in the whirlwind of fire and ice. "Okay, that's enough. Yomai, Setzer." Suddenly an authoritarian voice cut through the battlefield, and hush fell over the fighters. As the figure descended from the shadows, the being had long silver hair, gray skin, and blackened eyes, a smirk that could send shivers down your spine. Setzer and Yomai smirked as they flew upwards towards the being. "Of course, Lord Brachial," Setzer said mockingly, knowing it would get a reaction out of the demons below them. "Brachial," Ava hissed, clenching her fists and her nails cackling with demonic energy. "Well, Brachial, it seems you haven't changed a bit in all these hundreds of years." Another, more familiar voice appeared. He stood at the entrance of the station. It was none other than Azul himself. Brachial smirked. "Funny, I was under the assumption you were long dead. An absent leader might as well be, Azul's appearance sent a ripple of tension throughout the room. Setzer and Yomai's composure, despite the situation they found themselves in, didn't waver. "Yomai, Setzer, why am I not surprised you've become the dog to another dog? You could have never got the job done working for me. Not surprised you've become one of Brachial's pawns." Azul mockingly smirked at his two fellow fallen angels as Setzer seethed in rage, not making any moves towards Azul due to Brachial standing right there next to him. Rhea couldn't help but voice her disdain, her irritation boiling over. "Azul, you of all beings." Azul's gaze shifted towards Rhea, a mischievous glint in his eyes. "Rhea, you were always the feisty one, weren't you?" Kazuto, still recovering from his earlier struggle with Setzer, mustered the energy to speak. "What is the meaning of all this?" Azul just stood there, his presence commanding attention. The very sight of him stirred deep-seated emotions among the group, mostly anger and disbelief. He seemed nonchalant about their reactions, however, accustomed to the mixed sentiments he evoked. Brachial regarded Azul with an air of condescension. His silver hair and blackened eyes glistened with an unsettling allure. "Azul," Brachial purred, his voice dripping with both mockery and fascination. "I thought you'd have rotted in the abyss by now." Azul smiled, a knowing and enigmatic expression that irked the group even further. "Oh, I've been out and about, tending to other matters," he replied casually, his presence holding an air of confidence that mirrored Brachial's. "And what can I say? I found amusement in staying alive. It seems to always gather a reaction out of people when they see me." Azul then began to step forward, looking up at Brachial. "If I recall, Brachial, the last time we met, you were on your back begging for your life. If it wasn't for Arthur, you'd be long dead by now. Brachial's expression shifted from smug amusement to a subtle hint of annoyance as he responded to Azul's provocation. Ah, the past can be such a fickle thing. Like, which one of us were the reason that King Arthur died? I don't recall it being me who did it. Azul chuckled, a sinister undertone lacing his amusement. No, you weren't the direct cause, Brachial. But you certainly contributed to his fate. You, who reveled in chaos and darkness, corrupting the very ideals he stood for. A tense silence hung between them, both beings keenly aware of the weight of their shared history. The Gabrielle company watched with bated breath, the conversation revealing a deeper layer of complexity behind the power dynamics in this world. Setzer gave the group a knowing glance. Ah, the good old days. Oh, how I do miss them. Brachial turned his back to Azul. Setzer, Yomai, it's time to go. So you're just gonna leave when the party just gets started? How typical. Azul mocked Brachial as he looked back. Oh, don't worry. You'll see me soon enough. Brachial warned as the three fallen angels disappeared into the light. Azul's smirk deepened as Setzer, Yomai, and Brachial disappeared into the light. He then turned to leave, but Rhea stepped in front of him, her irritation clear. Hold on a minute. What are you doing here in the first place, Azul? Azul regarded her with an enigmatic smile. Ah, I almost forgot. You're not gonna like what I'm gonna say, though. I'm here because I have been named the official overseer of the Gabrielle Company. The group's reaction was a mix of disbelief and frustration. Cleo couldn't contain herself and chimed in with a comedic touch. Oh, how delightful. A fallen angel as our babysitter, just what we needed. Rhea, her eyes almost twitching, couldn't help but voice her disagreement. This is preposterous. No one in their right mind would agree to make a fallen angel an overseer to a bunch of demons. Azul chuckled at their reactions. I understand your concern, but it wasn't just anyone who arranged this. He leaned in closer, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. It was your dear father, Hades. Rhea froze in shock, stuck with a deadpan expression at the news. My father? Azul nodded. Don't worry, you'll be seeing him soon. I'm sure he can explain then. Kazuto spoke up. Wait, why would Lord Hades be meeting with us soon? Azul straightened up and looked at the group with a more serious tone. He's not here to see you lot. A meeting has been called between the leaders of the 5 great races. Demons, angels, fallen angels, pseudo-deities, and the occult. All because of the situation going on with Brachial and Excalibur. Now, if you would kindly, go home and get some rest. You'll be needed for what comes next. End of Chapter 36.